the future. I'd like to start by welcoming our new board member, Melanie Harvey from Poland. Welcome. And our two student representatives, Ainsley Parent and Libby Bertram, and thank you both for being here. We've been missing you. So thanks for being here. And I'd like to start with some congratulations and acknowledgments. Congratulations to Sophie Patno, who is the Optimist Club Student of the Month, who is a 6th grader at PCS. We don't have any agenda adjustments. Do we have any public participation? I didn't see any. Okay. And so we are down to our presentation. And if you'll remember, last month, Carrie did one on PRHS, and we'll be doing Elm Street and Whittier tonight. So who would like to go first? We'll let you guys fight it out. Ryan's ready.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan Patrick, and I'm the principal of Elm Street School. And I'm really blessed to be able to say that
Do you
I
want
went
to
to RSU 16.
move down by Steve, and then people at home can maybe hear you a little better. If that works for you.
We need you near a microphone.
I'm not sure. So my name is Ryan Patrick, and I'm the principal of Elm Street School, and I'm really blessed to say that I'm a member of RSU 16, and I've received a ton of support from the families and the communities of Mechanic Falls and from the staff in RSU 16. It's been a really successful transition, in my opinion, so I want to thank all of you for giving me this opportunity. And I hold in my hand a laser pointer and a thing that allows me to trade slides. And this was actually a gift given to me from a staff member as a welcome gift. And I think it just signifies how much support and care that I've been granted since I've started here. We'll see if it works today. So the goals of this presentation tonight are to introduce to you the programming and instruction that happens at Elm Street School, and then to look at how that's going in relation to student achievement data, and then to think about, so what next? So we have these programs, and here's how they're doing, so what do we do with that information? So that's kind of the goals of my presentation this evening. We do have a Wildcat Assembly the last Friday of every month, and actually one of the high school students agreed to wear the costume for us, and so I really appreciate the Community Service Day and that high school student for doing that. Yay, it works. So there are some unique features about Elm Street School that make it special in its own way. Although all of the schools are part of the 5210 program, because of the percentage of students who are free and reduced at Elm Street, we qualified to have a health educator come into our classrooms and teach specific lessons about healthy foods, to teach them to take risks in relation to healthy foods, and to kind of show them how to create a balanced diet, and when you're grocery shopping, how you can push for more fruits and vegetables into your grocery list. And so we're really lucky to have that extra on top of just being a part of the 5210 program. I'm sure you're aware the 5 fruits and vegetables a day, less than 2 hours a day of screen time, 1 hour of physical activity, and then 0 sugary drinks. So if you come into Elm Street School, you'll often see a lot of posters promoting the 5210 program. We also have a universal food service program that Betty spoke about at a previous school board member. Both Elm Street School and Bruce Whittier School were eligible for a Provisional 2 grant. So all of our students are able to access free and healthy breakfast and lunch. So that's another unique feature of Elm Street School. And we actually recently hosted invite a kindergarten parent to lunch day, and we had 13 parents come and eat lunch, and they were really surprised and impressed with the salad bar and how healthy our food that we were offering our students. And sometimes parents don't always have that connection. They see the menu, but for them to actually get to come and eat, it was a really great experience. We have a very strong PTO. And if you look at the upper right-hand corner of the presentation, we set a goal to have an outdoor classroom built at our school because we're partnered with the Ecology School, and they come to Elm Street and they do lessons on ecology and nature. And we've actually already met our fundraising goal, so hopefully this spring we will have an outdoor classroom built on the playground to support some instruction happening outside of the classroom. So the PTO group provides a lot of free and inexpensive family activities and service projects for our community. We also have a 7 Habits recognition program that we started this fall. And I'm sure you've heard of Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Effective People. And they have a children's version where it spotlights different leadership attributes that young children, if they develop them, it will help them be more successful in their future. So every month we spotlight a different habit and we teach it in the classrooms, and then we celebrate students who are able to exemplify that habit at the end of the month at our Wildcat Assembly. We also house programs for our English language learners, adult education, and the Manifed program. And as you know, the Manifed program provides food and backpacks for students to take over the weekend. We also have 6 brand new, well, not brand new, but 6 new classroom teachers, which makes up 33% of the teaching force at Elm Street School. And we also have 5 new ed techs, which makes up 33% of that teaching force. And then, of course, we have myself as the new principal. So there's a lot of...
That's 100%.
That's right, 100%. Yeah. So there's a lot of new features that make Elm Street really unique. So when you're looking at student achievement, it's important to take a step back and think about what instruction is happening in the classroom. What programs do we currently provide our students? And I wasn't sure how much information you already had regarding the curriculum and instructional programs we offer at Elm Street. But we do provide 90 minutes a day in literacy, and that's made up of the Daily 5 and the CAFE framework. And the Daily 5 is research-based reading strategies that are supposed to support reading achievement. So students every day should read to themselves in a Just Right book. They should read with someone. They should listen to reading, which is during the read aloud time when the teacher is modeling. They should be doing word work, which is attacking different strategies for prefixes and suffixes and affixes. And then they should also be working on writing, which is where they're writing about what they're reading. 60 minutes a day, we provide everyday math instruction, which is, it's considered a spiral program. And what a spiral program means is when concepts are introduced, they're revisited to a higher degree at a different point. So in kindergarten and first grade, children are introduced to fractions, but it looks very different than children who are introduced to fractions in 5th grade. So they introduce a lot of concepts, but they revisit them and they make them more difficult depending on the student's abilities. And we provide math instruction every day for 60 minutes for all of our students. We have implemented the Writer's Workshop, which I'm sure you've heard an awful lot about, and our students are writing every day for 45 minutes. And typically they're exposed to exemplary writing and mentor texts, so they're seeing what good writers do and what authors do. And then they're able to go and practice that in their own writing. And then at the end of Writer's Workshop, they have a share where they're able to read what they're writing and how it's going for them. And then the last part is we have specific units that we study for science and social studies. For example, 4th grade is working on cells right now. And I didn't put up their Handwriting Without Tears, but it is a handwriting program that is supposed to provide students with the scaffold to be able to form their letters appropriately at the end. So how is all of that instruction doing? Good question you ask. Well, if you look at the achievement for Elm Street School in literacy, Elm Street has averaged about 70% proficient or exceeding the standard for the last 5 years. And if you look at math achievement, Elm Street School has averaged about 68% for the last 5 years. So you can see that some years it's a little bit above the average and some years it's a little bit below the average. But for the most part, Elm Street School has remained pretty consistent. If you look at the most recent data, you would see that, or when you look at data, you can break it up into different subgroups, and you can analyze it a little bit deeper. So you'll see that in literacy last year, 80% of the female students were proficient or exceeding, and the arrow just means that we were above the target that the state set for us. So we did better than the target. You'll see that boys, 71% in literacy, and we were also above the target. And so you can see the different subgroups, economically disadvantaged and students with disabilities. And you can see in literacy we're pretty much above the targets or at the targets, in every subgroup at Elm Street School. I did compare Elm Street School to the state, although the state represents a much larger population of students, but you can see where they are at and then whether or not they met the targets they were supposed to. So every category in the state section is below the target that they should be at, and you can see that Elm Street is performing better than the state in each of those subgroups in literacy. Does anyone have questions about this slide?
You're doing good.
All right, thank you. So next you look at math achievement, and it is a little bit different of a circumstance. So you can see that in our subgroups we are not meeting the targets, except for in when we teach math to girls. You can see that 78% of the girls at Elm Street School are meeting or exceeding the standard, which is above the state. And if you look at the state side, they are not meeting any of the categories. And you'll see that we are above the state except for in boys. So on average, 62% of boys in the state of Maine met or exceeded the standard, and only 60% of the boys met or exceeded the standard at Elm Street School. I only point that out because as we go deeper into the data, you'll notice that there's a gender gap in the performance of our boys in writing, and as well as in discipline. So I only mention that here because you can start to see that there is a gender gap, in fact, in math as well. And what's interesting is that the state actually expects boys to perform lower than girls by 11%. Actually, Kim Brandt had asked me that today. You know, what was the expectation for girls versus boys? And it was 11% higher. So it just makes me wonder, why would we expect a different percentage for a different population? But
What's the number? Female 78% is up. What is the state number?
the state was at 63%.
Right. Then they're below. But what is the number that the state expects? I guess
Your
my
target.
question is.
I have that information in my bag. I actually had those numbers next to this, but I thought the arrows would be a little more simpler to understand. But I can get you that
Oh, that's
specific
no. I'm
information.
just asking.
Yep, no, that's a good question.
Is this all grade levels? Or?
This is an average of all of the grade levels that take the kneecap. So it's 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. So when you look at the writing, this is only our 5th graders, but it's based on their 4th grade performance. So it is a very small sampling of students, but regardless, you can see that Elm Street School has averaged about 50% meeting or exceeding the standards in writing, which obviously we would expect that to be significantly higher than 50% of our students. It is only of 4th graders, so it is a small pocket, but either way, you would want that to be significantly higher. And I am going to address what we as a district are doing to improve our writing scores. And if you look at writing and you break it up by the subgroups, you'll notice that 70% of the 4th grade girls at Elm Street School met or exceeded the standard, and only 35% of the 4th grade boys at Elm Street School met or exceeded the standard. So you can see that was actually lower than the state as well, but you can see there's a significant gender gap. So the question would be, why are so many of our boys not meeting writing expectations? That's a really good question. And you can see in the other categories, we are above the state or at the state in each of those, but you would of course want those scores to be higher. And you can see the state expectation as well. The reason there aren't arrows next to the numbers is because they haven't created or determined targets for writing. So we don't know if we're meeting or exceeding the targets because the state hasn't made any targets for us. Does anyone have questions about that? So I also wanted to include some office referral data. So I just listed the number of incidents that I've worked on this year at Elm Street School. And as I was looking more about the gender gap, of the 25 incidents that I've handled, 21 of them have been with boys. So when I say incident, it might be a decision a student makes. It might be something that happened on the bus regarding student safety. Maybe the student has a difficult time sitting at their seat. But I just wanted to give you kind of a general list of kind of where the incidents are. This doesn't include students who maybe refuse to do their work, or maybe they refuse to follow directions. Some of the smaller issues that kind of crop up with teachers on a regular basis. These are more incidents that involve me with the student and possibly with their family. So you can see that every incident is documented. It's followed up with a conversation with the student and the teacher or the bus driver. It's always communicated home. And then I just wanted to share that they're very situational. So what was the situation, what was going on, what happened, what was said. You know, it's really important to get that information from the students and from the teachers and the parents when you're working on those incidents. Does anyone have questions about the office referral data? So obviously you would be blinded if you didn't think that there were smaller issues that happened in public schools. We have had other issues of noncompliance or work refusal, and so I just wanted to share some of the typical strategies that teachers use to support students when there's a challenging moment. So, you know, always encouraging them to talk to the student first to find out what's going on in a private place out in the hallway. You know, and then, you know, if it is something related to an accommodation that they can be provided to help them be successful, this is a list of some of the common accommodations that might be provided. So maybe if the child has difficulty writing, they could use a computer. Or if they have difficult time holding a pencil, they could use a grip. So these are just some strategies that teachers use to support students. Yep.
What's a wiggle seat?
What'd you
What's a
say?
wiggle seat? We were wondering.
Oh, a wiggle seat. It's this red cushion that you
is that
inflate.
the one with the little nubs in it?
Yeah, and the kid can sit on it, and it kind of helps them like be a little bit more in control of their midline. So yeah, good question. I actually, one parent after student-led conferences said that they would buy the entire classroom those yoga balls for the kids to sit on. So I'm really excited. Maybe next time I come, I can report how that's going.
Will you allow them in your classrooms?
Why not try it if it helps kids focus, right? It's supposed to help with your...
We had an issue with that before, them not being able to be used in the classrooms.
It's worth the try. I've never used them in classrooms as a teacher, so...
They can go out just quick as they went in.
Yep, that's right. So does anyone have questions? Thank you, Julie, for asking. Any other questions about supports for teachers? Yep.
I actually have a question on the previous slide, but you had 25 incidences. You don't have to go back, but do you know how that compares to last year? And that's just this year?
That is just this year.
Yeah, so
And-
a few months. So
Right.
I'm just wondering, do you have anything to compare from last year? And I'm just curious if that number's a lot higher than maybe those that were addressed. And I know you weren't here last year, but I just didn't know. If you
I
had any
don't
sense
have
of
a
that.
real good comparison
Okay.
on that, but my hope is to continue to collect incidents and share back with you.
That'd be great.
Let's hope there ain't no more.
Yeah, I know.
You can see the bus is an area.
Is it morning bus or afternoon bus?
Afternoon. Usually it's the afternoon.
Restlessness.
Maybe they need more play.
Good data, good information.
Yeah.
So next steps, so what do you do with that data? Now that we have the data, what do we do with it? So we're going to continue to promote the Writers' Workshop philosophy and continue to provide professional development for the teachers on improving our writing instruction. And we're also going to continue to analyze our Tier 1 instructional programs. And the Tier 1 was the curriculum programs I mentioned earlier that are delivered every day for students. So it's really important to continue to improve on that to be the best teachers we can be. And obviously we're going to continue improving communication through the Patriot Press, the Elm Street Express, and our Facebook page. And then the new one is to really consider ways to engage, motivate, and make instruction more compatible for boys. So this is definitely an area of urgency. And what I'm going to wonder is if we're seeing it in writing and we're starting to see it in math, are we going to start to see it in reading as well? If we don't address it now, that's going to be a big worry for all of us, because we're really going to want to make sure that we're improving on that and making it more compatible for boys. Any questions on next steps?
Wish you luck.
That's right.
Wow, I'm not trying to be wise. I don't understand why there's such difference between the boys and girls at that age group. That they aren't paying attention. Too much commotion in the classroom. What do you believe?
Good questions. I mean, I think it's hard to know at this point, having looked at the data. But I do know that there are some recommended instructional strategies that enhance teaching, even if it's just giving more choice in the classroom. So letting your students choose what they write about. Sometimes that's more
Well,
motivating.
that could be a lot.
Because then they get to write about something that means a lot to them, as opposed to,
Right.
being told what to
I
write
mean,
about.
someone could choose write about hunting, fishing, anything,
Exactly.
instead of Paul Bunyan and.
Butterflies.
I wonder too, is it, and I don't know if there's a lot of literature maybe about the difference between boys and how they sort of process information and learn information different from girls. And whether, I think this is great information because I think it's sort of helping you to target like what's happening, and maybe the style of teaching and sort of what's happening is really conducive to a certain type of learner more so than others. I don't know. Just lots of.
I'm really glad you're thinking this way.
Thought-provoking.
This is exactly how I'm
Right,
thinking and how we're
right.
thinking. That's really important.
And Ryan, you even said to me today that you're thinking in terms of book study for professional development that might be on
Right.
some of the research that's out there.
Right.
They've actually done studies where there's schools now that actually have, like, let's say 2 kindergartens, one that's just boys and one that's just girls, because they learn so differently.
Right.
And like the importance of play and recess and having, I know that we have a limited amount of time each day to get curriculum in, but especially for boys, they need to get out and run so that they can focus more. And a lot of boys are being diagnosed with ADHD because they're cooped up in their classrooms. So,
Interesting. These are all great thoughts. It's so awesome to have a board that's willing to talk about these things.
What have your teachers, you must ask them since you got the results, what have they said? What's their opinion, difference between the girls and the boys?
Well, I think the focus on professional development this year in writing has really given all of the teachers more have allowed them to be more confident in their teaching of writing. And I think having a committed program with language that is consistent, I think will automatically boost our academic achievement, whether it's for boys or for girls or for both. But anytime you have a program that you're implementing every day for extended periods of time with consistent language, you're going to see positive results. So I definitely think just the focus on writing instruction has really given teachers a lot more confidence, even if you take out the boys and the girls aspect. But really focusing on that and saying this is an area we want to work on really means a lot to the teachers. That I think they've really appreciated the focus on writing instruction. Great. So I did want to end the presentation with just some highlights of Elm Street School, or things that are really exciting. So we've had excellent participation at our school functions, and we recently had a book fair and were able to donate over $1,000 in books to Elm Street School. And our Title I reading staff were awarded $3,000 in a Calling All Teachers campaign, and they were actually awarded that money at our last assembly. We have teachers who get an award at our Wildcat Assembly. It's called the Mugs and Kisses Award, but it's basically a teacher who exemplifies the habits that we're asking our students to exemplify. And then 37 students were given awards at the assembly for representing the habit of being proactive. So being proactive means that you have a positive attitude and that you do things without being asked. So those 37 students were specifically commended for one of those attributes of being proactive. And some teachers wanted to nominate all their kids. So it was really hard to pick the students who were really doing it, to a high degree. And then we had 1,384 food drive items collected for the Manifed Food Program. Our PTO recently did a food drive, and it was very successful. And we had 172 people attend our family movie night. So there's a lot of community support for the school. I have given tours of new families, and it's neat when I hear the parents say, "Oh, I went to school here, and that was my third grade classroom." And I get a lot of that, and I've even had people stop by who don't have children in the school, but they just wanted to stop by because they remembered going there, and they wanted to see how it had changed. So I definitely see that there's a lot of pride in Elm Street School, and a lot of people who really want it to do really well. So thank you very much for your time this
Thank
evening.
you. Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Good evening, I'm Sean Vincent, I'm the principal at Whittier Middle School, right here in the same building. I've been the principal here, it's my 3rd year at the middle school, and it's actually my 10th year in the school. Since 2004 I was a teacher, and then I was middle school dean, and then I was assistant principal, and now I sit in the big chair. So I'm very familiar with the school, and we've seen a lot of change over the last 10 years. This year, we're about 249 students, maybe 248. We lost a couple last week and got one back, so, but around 249 students in the middle school. By the numbers, average class size, I think for the most part, we're about, I think 19.6 in the special ed pull-out classes. We do have 36 students currently on caseload, and 5, I believe, that are on outplacement right now. Are economically disadvantaged, that's students who receive free and reduced lunch. We're at 39% last year, and I think we're hovering right around that same area again this year. This year, as Ryan mentioned, we are able to provide free lunch and free breakfast for all of the students through the Proposition 2 program. As far as our staff goes, we have 19 full-time teachers. 1 school counselor. We share 3 teachers. That's Greg Rose, the PE teacher we share with Elm Street, and then we share band and chorus with the high school. We also have a shared social worker. We share her with Poland Community School, and we have 5 ed techs. With all that sharing, we have a great sense of what's going on around the district. That's good. I'm going to get into NECAP results early in my presentation. Just a couple of notes on it. It's designed to measure student performance on grade level expectation. It's taken in the fall to assess students learning from the previous school year. So with middle school, it's we have them for 2 years. They're either coming in or they're going out. So when they are taking that test as 7th graders, it's actually reflecting how they did as 6th graders the previous year. They're learning during that time. And when they test as 8th graders, that's our middle school data based on their 7th grade school year. That's going to change this year. The NECAP testing is coming to an end this year, and we're going to go to smarter balance testing, and that will take place in the spring. So the data that you see here, there won't be much to compare next year. I think it'll be very difficult actually to continue to have the longitudinal data extending from what we have here. But you'll see some references to level 4, level 3, level 2, level 1, level 4 proficient with distinction, proficient, partially proficient, substantially below proficient. Just to give you a reading summary, these are the last 4 school years. So actually what this represents are the 4 years of students at the high school right now. The seniors are on the bottom, juniors, sophomores, freshmen are at the top. And because that's the most recent data that we have. And you can see how our students did, and I kind of grouped together level 3 and level 4. So the students who are proficient or proficient with distinction is in that left-hand column, and then the middle is the student who received the 2 or a 1, partially or the substantially below proficient. And then I also put a column up there with the state proficiency, just so you can have a frame of reference. As you can see, we kind of hover right around the state. We're usually very close to the state as far as proficiency goes with reading. With math, we had a good year last year. They did well versus compared to the state as a whole. There wasn't a great amount of change in the test, so I don't know why the state didn't do well. We kind of maintained. the hard part about our data is that it's apples to oranges. You know, every year it's a new group of 8th graders, so you're comparing totally different groups of kids. So huge variable, you know, to look, you know, year to year. So I think the better comparison is really between Whittier and the state. Writing is the one that, you know, very much like Ryan's data, it stands out. You know, it's well below where we want to be. You know, when you're around 50%, it just feels like a really bad sign. Although you look at the state and it's very similar data. I'm going to take you through some of the subcategories. 7th grade reading results. So these are our current 8th graders. Reading scores were fairly close, although if you look at the students who performed proficient with distinction, that highest level, you know, you can see 30% of our girls were actually in that category, which is strong. It's impressive, and it was stronger than the state performed. Our socially or our economically disadvantaged students performed 59%. We're above the state there. But students with IEPs are well below the state in reading. You know, there's some questions about that. I mean, certainly it's not a huge group of students, but it is a group of students who are in special ed for a reason. You know, and I would like to believe that, you know, we have the appropriate students in that category, and you know, maybe that's why, you know, we're so low, but it is an area that we certainly need to stay focused on. Our math results, again, this one's fairly close with our 7th graders, 65% with female, 63% male. Again, above state average for students with economic disadvantage, and our students on IEPs or who are on the special education caseload, very similar percentage to the state there. Reading, this group separates a little bit more than our 7th graders, and again, these are the kids who are currently freshmen. Our females performed, and you can again look at the percentage who are performing at a level 4, you know, the highest level. 41% of our girls were in that category, which is very, very strong. And then math, again, very similar. The boys and girls don't separate quite as much in math in either the 7th or the 8th grade, and we finally were above state average with students on IEP. This is the one that, you know, you're going to notice some trends after following Ryan, and this is one of those. The way that our students performed in writing, females to males, 65%. Were met or exceeded for females. They were proficient with distinction, whereas only 28% of our males were successful at that level. And then students who are economically disadvantaged, 51% above the state average of 33%. And then you can see our students with IEPs. We had a number of students who were in the 2 category, a big number actually, but they didn't make it into the proficient level. But what I want to do now is I'm going to jump from this data around the testing and around the academic performance to talk a little bit about behavior, as Ryan did. And again, you'll notice some trends. One of the things I think that's really neat this year is we were able to hire a middle school dean. Jessica Madsen is our middle school dean. She's dean, and she's the response to intervention coordinator. And what that has allowed us to do is do a much better job in kind of tracking behavior, in following up with students immediately, and communicating with parents. And I think that's been just a significant jump in what we're able to do as a school and how we're able to respond to students. I'm going to show you a bunch of different graphs, and some are probably more helpful than others. But we have a behavior ladder that we use at Whittier, and as you'd imagine, we have level 1, which is some real basic stuff, some distraction, some disruption type stuff, and you can see that that's our smallest category here, and the reason why is because teachers handle a lot of that. We have very active teachers who are intervening, who are doing a lot of the things that Ryan listed to make sure that they're dealing with those behaviors before they become office referrals. And that's why it's only 16%. And then you move up to 2, which is more intrusive behavior. It's kind of maybe some minor physical behavior, could be some swearing, could be cheating, could be just some behaviors that kind of move them up a little bit. Level 3 would be more bullying or harassment type behaviors, and then a 4 would be fighting, or could be something more extreme and more physical and in the face of a teacher, very public. So the 2 is the biggest chunk. You see the 40% there, the 3 being the 24, and the 4 being the 20% up on the top. We also break down by category, and you can see that the intrusive behavior, that kind of that level 2 behavior, is the area that we're responding to most often. And the nice thing about that is it provides lots of opportunity for education, to sit down and to help students get to a point where they don't make those same mistakes again. One of the things we've also seen in our data is that we don't have a lot of repeaters. Most of them, it's one and done, and then we're not seeing those kids come back. There's a very small group of students who are needing to be dealt with or receive consequences more than one time. We're also tracking behavior, taking a look at where it's happening. Certainly students spend the majority of their time in the classroom, and that's where we're seeing the majority of the behaviors. We take a look to see, where is it that who's having the issues. In our 8th graders, 7th graders come in, they spend the day at school, they're happy to be there, they'll do almost anything you ask them to, and then they go home and play school too. Whereas our 8th graders, they develop a little bit of an edge. They think they know better than we do, and that's all right. We work together. But this is the one that I thought was really interesting. Again, right in line with what Ryan was talking about. 88% of our office discipline referrals are coming, around our boys. And so we're taking a look at that and trying to evaluate, okay, what steps can we take? It was neat. We actually took all of our October data that they had been compiling. Jess works with one of our ed techs, Drew Robbins, and they compile all this data, and they put these graphs together, and they brought them to staff and said, okay, now what? And we let staff kind of talk through, okay, what are the next steps here? What do we need to do different? I think it was really eye-opening for staff to see the difference between the way that boys and girls were showing up in the data, to see the difference between the 7th and 8th graders and so forth. So we're trying a number of different things. We've started some, because I think one of the big pieces is engagement, making sure that the boys are truly engaged in their education. So we've set up some male mentoring groups where we're using some of the men, the teachers that are in our building. We're using some of the maintenance staff. We're using some folks up in the high school to work with groups of kids that have shown that they could use some mentoring, that they could use some connection with men in the building. We have a karate group that's meeting once a week with Tony Bennett, who is the head of the facilities in our building, and he instructs them in karate, and it's doing 2 things. It's mentoring the boys, and it's also providing the opportunity for physical activity and teaching about positive discipline. The I Hate Reading group, which is tongue-in-cheek, okay, but it's a group of boys that have talked forever about how they hate reading, and that it's probably because reading is hard for them. So we have a teacher and I run a group with them, and we meet every couple of weeks to sit down and read very high interest groups, around male characters, and that's been really fun. We have some social groups that are working with our school counselor that are boy specific and girls specific. We have transition groups that are meeting with Patrick Flynn in the high school, meeting with Nelson Williams in the high school, getting those kids connected and thinking about high school with the hopes that will help them dig in while they're here in the middle school as well. And then our writing group is to be added. We did looking at those writing numbers, we know that we have some work to do there with those kids. So we did a school-wide writing prompt this fall, and we're in the midst of correcting it. It's a lot of work. When we have that done, we're going to have some specific groups built around the needs that we're finding in our students.
Are these during school or after school?
They're happening at different times, not after school, because transportation is an issue, and lots of the kids who need that support, it's not possible. So we use, some of them are happening at lunch, some happen during academic support time, some happen, like the karate group does meet on like Friday afternoons, so they miss part of a class. But it's one of those things that, you know, you got to give a little to get some too, and so we're making some decisions in order to make sure that these things can happen for these guys. We're just finding that the higher level of engagement is there when there's that relationship, and so it's an important investment. And so far, we've done it all for free, so that's good. So what are we doing as a school beyond looking at our boys, looking at our writing? Our focus right now is around we have a really strong leadership team, and we're using that leadership team. We're kind of breaking off, and we said, you know, there's so many things that we need to get done this year and in the near future. So myself and the dean, and then we have three teacher leaders who each have responsibility in. We have a curriculum committee, an RTI committee, technology committee, roundtable committee, and wellness committee. And we're sharing out the work, and we have teachers are all assigned to one of those committees so that we can get more done and more efficiently. Because I think we just felt like we were spinning our wheels the last couple of years trying to do everything together at the same time. And we're finding that we're being much more productive this year and getting a lot more done by sharing the work and empowering teachers to kind of take charge. And so we're really moving forward. It's exciting what's happening at Whittier, and you know, I think that's about. I did print this off. I don't know if this connects with you guys or not, but it's 10 essential strategies for teaching boys effectively, and it's one of the documents that we shared with teachers when we took a look at the data, and I thought you might be interested as well. So I'll just send that around, and you can kind of look at it on your own time. And but it sounds like it's more than just our building. That it's, you know, something that as a district we're probably going to have to take a close look at. But I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on with our agenda, act on the minutes, approve regular meeting minutes from October 6th.
Move to accept.
Second.
Steve and Mariella. Is there any discussion?
Only thing I noticed was, I know I'm in there as seconding some motions, but I'm not in there under members present or members absent. I think I was present on that one, so I think that's the only thing that needs to change. My name needs to be on it.
Any other discussion or questions? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions?
I am not there.
Missy and Tina. New business, to approve the 2016 Safe Passage. Oh, sorry, skipped right over that. Thank you, Missy. Accept the financial statement of October 2014. Tina?
You want a motion first?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
All right, that's Steve and Jack.
So, our financials are looking pretty strong right now. Overall, we should be about 0.67 on our percentages, and we're at 0.73 as a complete system. There's a few things I will point out to you. I'll go through mine at consolidated. They're the first one on the list. You'll see there's some things in there that will be repeated for you. You can see on page, I think it's on page 3, our insurance is all paid out. It came in lower than expected. So in every school, you'll see that there's about a little over $1,000 left, and that will be a true savings. That won't be spent out. On page 3, you can see our fuel costs. If anybody was concerned that we were down to 0.13, that's just been encumbered. So it's just waiting for our fuel bills to come in over the winter. That money is saved out, so it's there and ready to go. So in every building, you'll see that they have that all encumbered already.
Why do we encumber that so early in the year?
I think that Gary has gone around and does that at every school, and I think it's just a process to make sure we know how much our contract is, and so just predicting how much we're going to need there and making sure it's saved out. So at least that's what I'm assuming he does. I know I was told by Wendy that he just went to each school and encumbered a certain percent. So it must be on what they're projecting they're going to need for the year. One of the lines that we always watch is our substitute lines, of course, and at Minot, you'll see their substitute line is 0.91, so they're in really good shape. That would be, I think that's on page 4.
3.
No, well, that's the custodian substitute line. I'm looking at the teacher. It's on page 4, 4 lines down. They're at 0.91. They're looking really good. If you look at all of the buildings, they're not all in really good shape. We have a few of them down as low as 0.41, so we're watching those lines. We have some long-term subs, some teachers out on maternity leave and some others out with medical leave. So
I noticed that under Whittier. Is that the
yes,
reason?
yeah, they have a teacher that's been out on maternity leave since the beginning of school. So again, we're watching those lines and watch carefully, and you hope that if one school is having a need for more subs, another one is not, and that was the case at Minot. They're looking very good. I'm going to move on to Elm Street School. Again, well, Minot you can see was 0.71. They're looking fine. Elm Street School, if you go to page 9, for 9. Teacher salary, you're going to see, actually that was on page 8. We have a 0.9 for teacher salary, about 3/4 away down to the bottom. There's probably a person coded wrong there, so that's an area that I need to look into to see why that's still 0.9. There's probably a teacher that's K2 that's listed as a 3 through 6th grade teacher. So we're not concerned about that, but that's an area that I'm going to look into. If you look at the end of Elm Street School, they're at 0.69. So they're not too far off the 0.67. They're spending their money about the rate you would expect.
Can I ask just 2 quick questions? Is MSR like retirement?
Yes,
or, okay.
Maine State Retirement.
Okay. And then tuition paid to charter schools?
Yes. What page are you on?
Well, I was just looking at page 8. So we had there what we had budgeted. It looks like 0.76.
Yeah, so the charter schools,
remaining.
yeah, so we pay out, they bill us quarterly, and we pay out the amount. So Minot Consolidated didn't have any students at charter schools last year, so they're actually in the red in that line because there was no money in there. But we did budget for it at PCS, and there's extra money in that line, so it kind of balances out. We're still good district-wide for our charter school allocations. No other big news in Elm Street School. If we go on to PCS, again, they're looking pretty good. They're at 0.69 as well, expending about what we would expect. On page 12, you see where the bond for the building has been totally paid out. So again, that's not a concern that line is gone. The interest comes in quarterly, so that money will be billed out 3 more times this year, but the bond is totally paid out. And nothing else that's of interest at PCS. If you move down to Bruce Whittier, they have 0.72 of their budget left, so that's a good thing. They are not spending out quite as quickly, but their subline is the one that's at 0.71, so we'll be watching Bruce Whittier's subline. PRHS, they're at 0.73, so again, they're looking good financially. One area last time I shared that we had been billed for a charter school, student at the virtual school that never actually went to the virtual school. That money has been returned to us. So on page 20, you'll notice that we got that money back. And I know there was a comment last time we were here wondering how long it would take us to get that refunded, and that has already been returned to us. School board, if you look on page 26, this is your budget lines. You're at 0.57. That's not a concern because the auditors have been paid out in, we think in full. We might have one small bill left. And also liability has been paid out in full. So those are two large expenditures that have totally come out.
I see we got that $100 back.
Yes, we did. What that was that we pay $100 for the secretary to take minutes, and they took it out of the wrong line. So when I asked, they went, "Oh yeah, there was a mistake there."
Oh, okay.
So that was taken care of. Our legal is at 0.80, so that line is looking good at this point. But of course, you never know with that. And your stipends will be coming out in December, from what I understand. So that line will be spent out relatively quickly. So you guys are looking good, and I guess expenditures as we would expect. Central office is at 0.61. One of the reasons that's down is because my salary was in grant money for about $12,000 last year, and so there has to be a transfer made. We ended up putting an ed tech at Elm Street in grant money and taking me out. So once that transfer has been made, that line will look a little bit better. And of course, we have a couple of big expenditures that have been totally paid out, like our lease for our building, and also we had a big software expense of $21,000. So those have all been paid already, and those bring our numbers down some, but we're, again, looking good. Special ed lines right now are looking fine. 0.80 for the special ed director, 0.77 for K-8, and 0.77 for 9 to 12. We do have an increase in our out-of-district students, and Holly is gathering some information for us. We're going to report out at the Finance Committee because we're concerned about the increase. We've had 6 new students transfer in that are in out-of-district placement, which we didn't budget for. Ooh. So we're concerned about that, and we'll be talking with Finance and making some decisions on how we will absorb the additional cost if they maintain, if they stay here and that we maintain that need.
Does the prices vary, what we have to pay for different students? Is it set rate?
The way Holly, do you want to speak to that?
There are a variety of schools, and every school has different costs.
Okay.
So, yeah, so she's gathering all of that information and what the expected cost will be, and then we'll have to have some conversation about how we move forward to cover the costs as those are, of course, required, and we can't decide not to do it. But right now her lines are looking good, and then transportation's at 0.67. They're right as unexpected, and adult ed is right where they're expected. So overall, our financials are no big surprises, and just a few lines that I thought you might want pointed out to you.
Any questions for Tina? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Unanimous. Yeah, now we'll move on to approve the 2016 Safe Passage trip request, and Skip is here, and Tina, I don't know if you wanted to say something also. Or...
Well, this is off topic just a tiny bit, but Skip is going to be recognized on Saturday in Bangor by Educate Maine, and I will be there to see the ceremony, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yes, I wanted to make sure people remembered that he was a finalist and
yes.
year in Maine.
Yeah, we're very excited. What I understand, Skip, is you'll have a table or some sort of a display, and they'll have speakers there from around the state, and I'm looking forward to it. So.
Me too.
Congratulations, Skip. Once again, you've made us proud.
Thanks very much.
So there was a county teacher of the year, so there's 16, and then of course the teacher who is the teacher of the year, so there'll be 16 total teachers in the state there.
And the finalists, there were 4.
We have finalists were 4.
He was one of the
yes.
4. And they made a mistake.
We're all in agreement on that. You know, I think they probably saw that we had so many principal teacher of the year that they, felt like they had to pick somewhere else. But congratulations, Skip, and I look forward to Saturday.
Thanks so much.
So you want to tell us about your trip and your
Sure.
request?
So this will be the second time that I am requesting a week to take a group of students to work with Safe Passage, which is headquartered in Yarmouth, Maine. And we did it in 2004. We did it in April. So we're going to plan to do it every 2 years so that we can have 2 years to raise money, and I think that'll be a lot easier. So the next trip would be April of 2016, and I already have a group. I have 10 students, and we're already well into fundraising, and we had our first parent meeting, and it's very exciting. This group is really seems really solid and active and willing, and our first fundraiser next Wednesday, a variety show, so we're well underway. The week we're requesting this year is the week before April vacation. And that's it's considerably cheaper to travel if you don't go during a vacation. For example, the week before February vacation is $477 per person if we were to travel this coming April. The week of vacation a week later is $1,700. The April difference isn't as drastic, but it's still over $100 of student difference the week before the week of vacation. So if the board is willing, I'd like to use that money for Safe Passage and our kids and not the airline. And I'll answer any questions that you have. I can now.
Anybody have any questions for Skip?
No, but I'll make a motion to approve the trip.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Any
Well, I
more
just have
questions?
a quick, so the travel though is February of 2016?
April.
It's either February.
Right.
And so
you're
I
asking
was
for
actually
April.
leaning toward April, but I talked to Carrie, and it just seems risky to go in February because of the weather. And honestly, if we miss, it is tricky because the dates are very firm. I mean, it's Sunday to Sunday, and there's no wiggle room. So and we pay for that week.
So it's April 16, 2016?
Correct.
Okay. So not this coming year?
Right. It's every 2 years.
But, okay,
So they have time to fundraise.
okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make
Yeah,
sure
it
it
really
was
works.
clear.
It really works out a lot easier, and
Yeah,
yeah.
good.
So the kids that you're working with now are like freshmen and sophomores?
Yes, and 2 juniors. The juniors are important because if a student is 18 when they travel, I don't need to have a chaperone. Safe Passage is very strict. They require 1 chaperone for every 3 students that are under 18. If the student is 18 or is 18, then I don't need to have a chaperone for them.
That's nice.
And because we don't ask the students to pay for chaperones. Like every other exchange program that I've ever been involved with, we don't ask the students to cover that cost. So we have to raise that cost for every chaperone. So it's considerable. So if we have the juniors, it eases the cost demand a little bit.
So do you ask, like, next year, incoming freshmen, like, will they be allowed to
Yeah,
participate even though
sure.
they haven't spent this past year fundraising?
Sure. Well, yeah, but they wouldn't travel in 16. They would be able to travel
Like, okay,
in the 18 trip.
okay,
Yeah, by doing it every 2 years, every kid still gets an opportunity.
okay.
Who goes through the building, nobody's cut out. Right, Skip?
Correct.
Yeah.
And then we presented the slideshow. The students that went had a great assembly where they shared passionately about their trip. And we made it clear that juniors would get first. We would take juniors first, then sophomores, and then freshmen. So. And there were 10 going and 2 chaperones.
We can do something that's 2 years out. I mean,
You did last time. I think, yeah.
Well, last time we would have approved it, I would assume, the year we did it.
Well, that's why I was
That's what I
questioning
know,
that,
it's just
because
weird
I
to
was
be doing
thinking
it
if
so
it's
far
within
out.
our year, you know?
Yep.
So that's why I thought it was.
And I don't really know. I would guess we can, and I think in order for Skip to be able to make the plans that he needs to make, it really needs to be done now.
Skip, I have a question. You said 1 to 3 chaperones, but there's 8 kids that need a chaperone and 2 chaperones.
Right, so
That's not 1 to 3.
Yeah, so I got, because, see, I think, I know Christiana, they know us, and I think they were willing to have 1 extra,
That's 2 extra.
yeah.
It's okay.
You know it's in
You'll
your
figure it out.
mathematics.
You'll figure it out. Yeah.
Okay, any more?
Are you purchasing tickets like now for
Can't,
2016?
I'll purchase them as soon as I
As
can.
soon as you get the money to do it?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That's unanimous.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Skip. Have a good day on Saturday.
We will have, thanks.
And our next order of business is to approve of the 2014 to the 2017 support staff contract.
Sure. Do you want me to give an update on it, or
wanna
do you
have
want a
a
Mariella?
motion first, or-
Sure, you can if you want, and if I think of anything else, I can just add after.
Okay. And I do want to thank Mariella and Jack and Jennifer, because I know they have put in a great deal of time, as well as our central office and Tina and Kim, in terms of negotiations. Thank you.
So I didn't know if you wanted to know what some of the key changes were, and if you do, I made a little list. There aren't a lot of major changes in language. One of the simple ones was on the work years and hours. We have 5 professional days. I'm trying to see what page that is, work hours. And we increased the page 7. For our licensed practical nurses, they have 5 additional workshop days, and we gave an additional 2 to PCS nurse because she has twice the student to staff ratio as the 2 smaller schools, and so needing a little extra time to process papers and all of that kind of thing. So we agreed if the ratio went above 1 nurse to 425 students, we would give the additional 2 days. So that was a small change. On page 9, we made it consistent that when sub was needed for a manager or a director for food service or custodian, that they would get an extra $1 an hour. And I think it was in on one of those, but not on both. So we made it consistent for both of those departments. We also added in that the superintendent had approval of those times, because sometimes a manager or a director is out, but you don't need a sub to fulfill their full responsibilities. So that had some superintendent oversight added in. On page 11, we had $750 that ed techs can have towards conferences or work or courses, and we added $500 more because we have 4 ed techs that have a 1-year extension to get their ed tech 2 certification, and so we wanted to make sure they had the financial support to take an additional class if they needed to.
Is that just for this following year, left
Yes.
that in for all 3 years?
That's just for this year, and it
Okay.
is listed as a 1-year only because there are no more ed tech 1s after June of this year.
Okay.
And on page 15, we clarified the holiday language. So for it didn't clarify what kind of holiday pay a part-time staff member received. So we clarified that language in the contract so that if you worked on a holiday for 3 hours, you would get 3 hours of holiday pay. Whereas in the past, we haven't been giving pay unless you were a full-time employee. The language didn't say part-time staff members were excluded, so we wanted to make sure that was clear. We also changed the vacation option. We had that staff member, the previous contract had that you got 3 weeks of vacation after 15 years, and we agreed to go to 3 weeks of vacation after 10 years. So they get, and that only impacted.
Is that the full-time employees?
Yes, full-time employees. After 10 years of experience, they'd have a 3rd week of vacation. And then the last change, of course, was salaries. And for our salary, we had a 70-cent increase for our ed techs and also our secretaries.
50 cents on the secretary.
50 cents on the secretaries, because they were our staff that were the lowest paid and the furthest off the regional averages. And then all others for this year are getting a 2% raise. If you look to next year, it's a 3% raise overall for everybody, and then the 3rd year, it's a 2.7. And that's it, unless I'm forgetting something. Jack, Jen, Mariella? Yes?
From what we gave away in this contract, what's the total effect on the budget? What's our
For
increase?
this year?
Yes.
Can't remember.
It was over, I can't remember exactly.
Because we've been
either,
working with
but-
both. We've just been, this one was
Yeah,
done a while ago. We've been working on the teacher
I
one
know.
recently.
The overall for all 3 years is just over 9%, which is what we've discussed.
How much?
9%.
Okay,
So,
in
over
dollars.
3 years.
Yeah, I don't know without looking.
So,
I'd have
in
to,
dollars,
I can
yeah.
probably pull up my computer and get that information for you if you'd
we-
like.
Great. Would you mind?
No.
No, oh, you don't have to do it right now.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine. Just if you could send it to.
sure.
We within this year's budget line?
No, we're not.
How much we owe her?
I don't have the dollar amount, but we only budgeted, well, it's hard to say because we budgeted 3% overall for teachers, ed tech, central office. You know, we just did a general 3% increase. The ed tech salary is 4.7 for this year because we did that bump for the ed tech ones, which were $3 below the regional average. But the the salary, of course, is a lot different than a teacher salary. So the increase, I mean, the increase is not as dramatic as it sounds, as if you are doing that much of an increase over the teacher salary. But we will have to absorb that difference of 1.5 or 7% of the ed tech contract.
But I was thinking it was like maybe 30,000
Yeah.
or something.
What?
It might have been like 30,000, which means we would.
3,000?
30,000.
Over and
we would-
above?
Yeah.
But we would have to find it from other lines. But the reason was because, remember at the beginning of the year, we had how many vacancies in ed techs?
We had,
We couldn't fill
that was
the ed
after the
tech
school started,
positions.
yes.
So,
Okay, I guess I have a question for you. These new ed techs we hired, we promised them the world before we give it to them?
No, they're on last year's salary.
Okay.
Yeah.
but this will be retroactive to the beginning of this school year.
Any other questions? Not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2014 through 2017 Educational Support Unit contract.
Second.
Second. And any more discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Two opposed? And any abstentions? So
And I would
motion
just say,
carries.
I was just going to say that we did look not only at what our statistics were in terms of filling the positions, but also at what all the surrounding schools were paying. And we found that we were not at all competitive, particularly in the ed tech lines. So that was the reason why we made those changes.
We had ed techs at about $10 an hour, and ed tech 3s require at least 3 years of college education, and in the regional regional averages, they were getting between $13 and $16 an hour. So and that's why every year we have, 10 to 20 positions open because they're just leaving and nobody's applying for them. I'm not sure if do we have any positions open now? We still have 4. And so, it's really difficult when you are offering a salary to somebody who's college educated that's barely above McDonald's. Yeah.
So,
Do we have a, looking long-term, because I think, at least as long as I've been on the board, I've heard, we don't pay, we're not comparable, and what other, so at what point do we feel like, because it feels like every year we're trying to make up for that, and I think we need to kind of be competitive. I'm not questioning that, I'm just trying to figure out, because it just seems like we never seem to reach that, even though it seems like we're giving significant increases with contracts, and I'm not just talking about this contract,